How effective are you going to be when you fight and you're not fighting from a position of victory or position of hope?
They think guys are abstaining. They're not. It's because they just can't get that access.
Almost all of us were shown some form of pornography at a young age.
They're going to help you manage all of this data, but it's really an access point.
What was the most influential sources to the Founding Fathers? 34% of all the quotes they identified came out of the Bible.
We have accounted for every single terrorist cell that we know that hates America have crossed over.
Have they been captured?
No.
We're now in a war of narratives versus the truth.
For COVID, that treatment strategy came to me as an answer to prayer in a dream.
25 to 47% of all trafficking is familial.
Right.
Now it's
In the U.S.
In the U.S. Now it's the caregiver. So yes, let's highlight the evil. We do. But let's speak hope. Welcome on The Bottom Line. It is the inaugural first episode of the new show. You're the first guest, and this is the new studio. So for everybody watching, thank you. This is a year in the making to get here. So to Dan and Becca, Tammy, the whole team putting this together, the whole show together. It's exciting. But Philipa, welcome.
I am honored to be the first guest on the live in-person broadcast.
Yeah, it's fun. Just typical to my style, we're just going to dive right into the deep. And for those who don't know, yes, Philipa is my wife, but you're here. Honestly, I picked you as a first guest selfishly for a couple of reasons. One, if we had technical issues, I'd have some favor and some tolerance, which we don't. It's amazing. So kudos to the team setting it up. But I wanted to go on your own right. This issue we're going to tackle today, you're a writer, a well-respected writer in screenplay and those things. So you write characters, right? But really for me, the topic today is family, is what it comes down to, is family. And I'm wrestling with this in prayer and also in thought. I'm wrestling with this notion of family. You know, what is family? And so we're going to dive into family a little bit today. But if I could just start there, controversially, family, so often, we adopt family, Christians will say brother in Christ, sister in Christ, or football teams will go, this is family. And legitimately, they'll treat those guys better than they treat their own family.
It's true.
So there's some dynamic there. There's something that happens in the non-DNA bloodline family that we adopt as a culture that sometimes, probably more often than not, people get along better with those people. And there's a better love-trust relationship almost for me than with their biological family, right? So I just toss the ball your way because you write characters and you're always thinking about these dynamics. So just what do you have to say about that?
Well, I think there's a lot of reasons for that. And I love writing. I love understanding people and why they are a certain way, like what got them to those decisions that they made. That's how I think as a story writer. And I've been thinking about this, how our society really is set up to separate families. So I think we're breeding a culture, which is interesting because one of our core desires as people is belonging. We want to have belonging, especially in our teenage and young adult years. We're searching for belonging. But meanwhile, our society has set us up to separate the family. And you see that in our statistics. We've got a 50% divorce rate for first marriages, and it's worse as you keep going. So I believe, I think, especially when we hit the Industrial Revolution, I'm going to get really deep and really philosophical.
No, please go there, yeah.
But people started coming to the cities, and we started sending men to work 9 to 5. And now we've got women going to work 9 to 5. And you've got married couples who don't talk anymore because they're at separate workplaces for most of their life. So they're not interacting. And then they're sending kids to a school system and they're not seeing their kids. Other people are raising their kids. So we're really separating families. And I think it's so interesting. Like, we have brothers and sisters in Christ, and I think that's in belonging with our different groups. Like, I'm a creative. I feel belonging with other intellectual creatives. I'm going to feel that, and I feel belonging with people that love God like I love God. But I do think God is very intentional with who he gave us as parents and as families. In the word, it says he knows every hair on our head. He knew us before he created us in the womb. Of course he knows, and he was intentional with who he gave us as family members. And those are hard relationships because we're the closest with those people. And a lot of our stuff comes out, and you can't hide it from people. And it forces us to deal with things. And you have 3 options, I think, in conflict. Our culture is also very horrible with conflict. So it's easy to bail, which is option 1, which is why there's so much divorce. And why it's easy to leave friendships and whatever, bailing, leaving. That's option 1. 2 is you can ignore it. That doesn't really, you can hide things for a little bit, but I don't believe time heals all wounds. You have to be intentional with healing. Otherwise, that's just going to fester. That's all time does with wounding is it festers unless you're intentional with healing and airing it out. It's like a wound. You have to let it breathe with oxygen and treat it. So bailing, ignoring, or you can heal, which our culture I don't think is very
interesting.
good.
You pick healing as the 3rd option, the last option. Not for you, but that's what society does.
That's true.
Because it's the most painful.
Yeah.
Healing is actually the most painful.
Yeah.
Or it's perceived to be the most painful, but actually it's the most liberating. It's perceived to be the most painful. The most painful thing ultimately, I think, is the ignoring it, right? Because that compounds. And then that's when you see the great outburst, the eruptions. It just comes to mind recently, like, not that this is indirectly related, but like Antonio Brown has these outbursts. And I think in football, and you're talking about the mental state of America and psychosis and where we are with mental illness and things, right? And I think a lot of the things, even with mental illness, and this may be really controversial. Yes, I believe in mental illness. You're a former psych major at the University of North Carolina. So we deal with this, and it's human psychology, human behavioral science. But I think if we do better at the airing it out scenario, when the offense occurs, when the strife or the battle happens, in that moment, if we learn how to deal with it, how to articulate better, right, how we feel, how to give the other person, whoever it is, right, family and non-family, time to articulate and inform, and this is something I learned from you a lot, is like, give me time, to form my thoughts so that you can understand me, right? I watched a Joe Rogan, Elon Musk podcast. No, it's not true. A Rogan, Jordan Peterson podcast.
Yeah.
And Jordan said, we're highly inefficient at communicating, right?
Agree.
Then you go to an Elon Musk conversation with Rogan and Musk with Neuralink and whatever, which I'm not a huge Neuralink fan at all, but he was saying, look, we're very inefficient at communicating. So much gets lost in translation. So you look at Peterson and Musk, and they're talking about, hey, it's so difficult to take a really complex idea, put it in words, right, and get the other person to get what you're saying, which is why when we make film, it's a miracle. It's a miracle that you can take an idea that's ethereal. You can't touch it, knock on wood, like a table or a building, and say, hey, do you see it? Hey, imagine Avatar, James Cameron. Man, I'm seeing these dudes. It's kind of Pocahontas, but it's not. But they're in space. The gardens are floating. The dude's, 12 feet tall. To articulate that idea so that the other person actually understands it. Now take that into complex things like marriage. Or sex, when it comes to sexual relationships, or pain, or hurt, or offense, or spiritual differences, or cultural differences, racial differences, ethnic differences. You're coming from a black background, I'm coming from a white background, but I'm a white guy coming from South Africa. So all of a sudden, it's this melting pot of like, okay, how do I articulate my experience to you, so you have an accurate picture of my experience, so you can then decompress, formulate your thoughts, articulate back to me, is this what you're saying? And I go, yeah, but then find truth as the center. Because now you can imagine, if truth is not there, well, then my reality is truth. well, that is a disaster
Well,
because it's different than your reality.
It's true. And I think one of the things I had to learn is that people think differently than me. And
It took me a while.
right?
I wanted everybody to think the way I think until I was about probably 25. I was like, why does that guy not think like me?
Yeah.
And that was very self-centered. It's very selfish, actually.
And I think marriage and parenthood exposes how selfish we are. And it, a lot of relationships I've been, I'll come back to this, are about sacrifice. And the greatest among you will be your servant. And I know I'm on a little bit of a tangent, but I think this is important. We are stronger together. And I believe that is why society wants us separated. Society wants us weak on our own. And we've been sold this American dream, which, you know, itself isn't bad, but it's the whole American dream is I'm going to make it on my own. And you can't really make it
No, it's not
anywhere
possible. No,
on your
nothing.
own
You
by
can't.
yourself. You
That
can't.
quick, I couldn't build a studio on my own. You can't do
Right?
anything. I couldn't wire this microphone on my own. No, there's
No.
nothing you can. That's the illusion. It's a great illusion.
It is.
But it's a twist, right?
And we've been sold that.
Because the American
though.
dream is amazing.
Yeah.
You can. But there should be a tagline to it. You
Yeah.
can, but not by yourself.
True.
Right?
True.
You can,
Yeah.
but you need people.
Yeah.
You can, but you're going to fail.
Yeah.
And you'll win. You can, but you're going to learn more from your losses than your victories. But you can.
Yeah. Yeah. And I just think we are so much stronger together. And I had this, I'm a story writer and I'm very visual and I dreams and I see things. And I had this, as I was praying, I felt like I saw this vision of a puzzle and a puzzle piece. And I felt like the Lord was saying, like, you are a piece of the puzzle and this is what you look like. This is what's on your puzzle piece. And these are where your curves and your edges are. And that's where you know who you fit with, is when you know what your curves and your edges are and what's on your image so that you can match with other people and where you fit. But a puzzle piece by itself is it's just a piece. Like, we all need each other. We have to fit together, and then you can make something really powerful.
That I want to intersect there. I want you to pick that up. I just want to do a quick shout out to Patriot Mobile. Everybody watching, if you call 972 Patriot, you're going to get a discount from the only Christian conservative cell phone provider out there. They use all the major towers. Great service, incredible people. I know them personally. Their heart's right. I mean, they send people to the border with us to serve communities. I mean, they're amazing. So check out Patriot Mobile, 972 Patriot, and you're going to get a special deal. But you have to mention the bottom line. The show. This is where you're at. You're at the bottom line. That's the new show here with us. So 972 Patriot, the bottom line. Go get yourself a deal by people who are probably like-minded. Philipa, so let's talk about puzzle. On me, myself.
Mm-hmm.
And we're going to get back to family because this is part of family.
It is part of
So
family.
here I am. I'm a puzzle piece. I hear what you're saying. I'm a puzzle piece. I believe created by God for a purpose.
Mm-hmm.
Okay? People may not believe that. For whatever, they're still here. So whatever they believe, they still, if you don't believe in God, you still need to figure out, why am I here? And
That
what
is
am I
the
supposed
question.
to do?
Mm-hmm.
Who am I? Danica Patrick, one of the only NASCAR racers, a pioneer. I quote, she said one day, she said, I didn't recognize who I was and what I like until I was 35.
Mm.
Now, she didn't talk much about racing in that comment, which is interesting, but she talked about she didn't discover art and that she liked art until she was 35. I actually think that's pretty dang accurate. I mean, it takes a while. It takes a long time to figure out who you are. Now, I want to go to the puzzle piece.
Mm-hmm.
If I'm not a puzzle piece that's together, right?
I mean, healthy.
Healthy, but also knowing my direction, knowing my skills, my talents, where I can contribute most to society. Mm. But I'm a piece of the bigger puzzle. Mm. If I'm a piece, but I'm broken in pieces, how am I going to contribute to the bigger puzzle? I mean, it's going to be really hard, right? It's going to be tough to know. So I think your comment earlier with people want to know where they fit in.
Yeah.
I want to reverse that. Before you want to find out where do you fit in,
you have to know who you are.
Let's get you pinned down to who are you?
Yeah.
What makes you tick? What are your personal likes and dislikes? Otherwise, I think today in culture now, people adopt other people's ideology.
They do.
Other people's vision,
Yeah.
other people's dreams. And that's how you see people do things in the streets, burning cities down, and probably don't really have deep-rooted personal conviction for why they're even there. It's an adopted identity,
They
which
wanna
I think is
fit in.
dangerous.
They want to fit in. We have that need for belonging. But you're right. And you played professional sports, so you know you're as strong as your weakest link.
100%.
It hurts everybody when you're not healthy. And that's something that we have to understand too, is we have to take responsibility and self-accountability over our own mental health. And knowing if this isn't healthy, I'm not just hurting myself, I'm hurting everybody around me. And that affects the family, that affects marriages, it affects your team. Yeah, everything.
Yeah. Okay. So find myself, find who I am. Not easy to do for people, and praise God, I am there. And it took time. But honestly, for me, I don't know. Look, being raised without a father and an incredible mom, but still, it's almost like Velcro. You go through life, and stuff sticks to you. Sometimes you stick it on by purpose, like people.
Yeah.
You jump into a sexual relationship with somebody, you're sticking them on.
Yeah.
But sometimes stuff sticks to you because you bump in life, you bump against things, right? Now you're carrying the stuff because let's say you're outside as Velcro. We got to get rid of some stuff that's not our own, that didn't come from inside. Mm-hmm. I'd say almost everything that comes from outside that sticks to you, and I'm not talking about good experiences that you learn. I'm talking about the negative stuff, right? Because it took marriage for me to literally encounter this force called Philipa, and it sparks. I mean, you pushed against things that I was carrying that Velcroed to me. Some stuff I put there as defense mechanisms. Sometimes we put a shield up and say, hey, I'm going to Velcro this armor to me. But actually what it does is it separates me from society, and it makes me a loner, and it makes my hard heart, unapproachable, etc. Even for the Christians too, God can't even get in, right? Yeah. You had to come really pound against some of that stuff for me to wake up and go, oh, I see it. People don't think the way I think. They shouldn't think the way I think. I should celebrate differences, right?
Don't think the same.
But that wasn't. I was 32 years old when we met, for crying out loud. So yes, mid 30s, probably close to 40. 31. How do we help culture people discover that earlier, so that the norm is not, oh.
I think we've got to be intentional, and I think that's the problem. We all have stuff. Like, no matter how great your parents are, they're gonna mess up. We mess up. Everybody messes up.
Yeah, because there's not a manual on how to be a dad. We are learning as we go.
We try our best, and unfortunately, there are some really bad parents out there that made a lot of mistakes, and even the good ones. Like, you're gonna get wounds and you're gonna get hurt, and you have to be intentional. One of the things that I'm learning is how to apologize. Apologize to your kids, which I don't think was taught to my parents' generation. It was like, my rules, my authority is never questioned. And it never took the time to apologize. And that's what I think their generation was taught and learned. But
apologizing is modeling a healthy behavior. So it is teaching.
Yeah.
You're talking about owning your mistakes.
Yeah.
But owning it in public. But now we go back, full circle. We're going to get back to airing it out.
Yeah.
Do not conceal it,
And any of your stuff, if you don't deal with it, it's just going to get passed on to your kids. Like, I think we need to have it stops with us culture as parents and in our families. And I think one of the biggest battlefields we have in our culture is in the home, in the living room, in front of the TV. So it is that home aspect, family, in front of media. And I think we have to take a stand of it stops with us. Pornography, it stops with us. Any unhealthy behavior, it stops with us. Or it's just going to get modeled, and it's just going to get passed down to your kids, and they're going to have to deal with the same issues that you were dealing with. So it's almost selfish of you not to, because you're hurting yourself, you're hurting everybody around you, and especially your children when you don't deal with your stuff.
This is so fascinating. So I can't, man, my mind is going off. I'm hearing Elsa conceal, don't reveal, which is wrong.
Yeah.
You don't conceal, reveal. But here I'm going. There's so much effort today in altering DNA, right? To try and get away from the hereditary kidney disease, hereditary congestional heart disease, or high cholesterol or whatever. People want to root it out through CRISPR-9 DNA, and I go, that's not the way. It's behavior. We should pay more attention to how we behave, how we process, how we use this computer that God gave us, how we take emotion, the EQ, not the IQ, but the emotional, the EQ component of our psyche and our being, how to handle that, because people are so emotional today, and everything is emotion, but they don't know how to process it and then translate it in a healthy manner so it's not destructive to society. So instead of doing the hard work, that's hard work, modeling good behavior for our children, engaging in their lives, bringing the family unit back together, working through really difficult situations without going to war, without ostracizing family members, right? Rather do the hard work than saying the quick fix is this something we can do in a lab to mess with your DNA or the sperm or the egg, or can we do something in the DNA to root something out? I think that's a major cop-out, which is going to have massive ramifications because you're playing God and it's going to be destructive. But again, for me, it's a cowardly route. It's the coward's way.
I don't think it's a root issue. There's a lot of studies on how our thoughts affect our health. What we believe affects our health. This is so cool and this is so powerful. I don't know if you've experienced hives. Hives is an allergic reaction it can be triggered by allergies or our emotions. And when I was a child, I got so upset. There were 2 occasions I got so upset internally that I physically broke out in hives.
Oh, the body will manifest.
Yeah.
Well, that scripture also says, as a man thinks, so is he, right? And then literally, I'm telling you, you can think yourself sick.
And I did.
Which let's talk 2020 pandemic. And when you start fear-mongering and everybody, and the world is falling, the Chicken Little, the sky's falling. Oh, it's going to fall in some way. It's going to fall on you, right? Maybe not on the world, but you can think yourself sick.
But it was so, my mind, I was so stressed emotionally, and I made myself sick. So I think sometimes we're going at things backwards, where I think a lot of our root issues are kind of belief systems we've adopted internally that affect us. That medicine can treat the symptoms, but it doesn't really treat the problem. And so like with antidepressants, you've been on a certain antidepressant for so long, and then it no longer works because it didn't fix the issue. It just dealt with the system.
Though. I wasn't on the antidepressant.
Yes, no, I mean,
but somebody,
culturally. Yeah. And then you have to add another one, or you have to switch it up and do more and do more and do more, because it doesn't actually treat what's really wrong. Yeah. And we have to treat what's really wrong and stop covering things up and ignoring what's really wrong. So we need these conversations in the family. We don't talk the same as people. We think differently. So for me, for example, I'm very internal, and I've had to learn, especially with you're very verbal. I've had to learn, and I'm not great at it because I see and I feel everything. So I'm having to verbalize everything I see and I feel, and it's not always the best conceptually when it comes out. Just while we're here,
tell people what's your Enneagram.
Oh, it's a 4-5, which I don't.
Okay, and what is your Myers-Briggs?
INFJ.
Your INFJ, very rare, the rarest form, it's I can rare. Attest to it.
It's the counselor.
Is challenging. No, you gotta go to a soul level and a spiritual level to communicate, because it's and it's so process heavy. But take what you just said for me, and now let's go back to the difference between not the legally adopted family, but the adopted family, whether it's a football team or a workplace environment. So you say, okay, we sent the father to work, the mother goes to work, the child goes to what I call an indoctrination camp, which is a school. So the family's pulled apart. We live past each other in society, okay?
Yeah.
We got to come back together, not live past each other, have real conversations. I want to get back to, why is it easier and some of this is, Johnny obvious, stating the obvious, but I want to go deeper. Why is it easier to interact and work with that family? I'll use an example. A family member of ours together was through high school a completely different person with family than what we learned he was with friends. Friends saw him as a comedian, the funny guy, the outgoing guy. And for the life of me, he was the introvert in the family. So, and for people watching, that's probably going to resonate with a lot of people. Go, yeah, I can be myself with those people, or I can be someone else with those people and fake it because the people at home really know me. Or, I keep thinking about a prophet's not welcome in his own town, True. Maybe family knows so much about us that we inhibit ourselves and we don't want to be ourselves fully in front of family because we feel like we're going to get exposed. Something in that mix goes off.
Well, I think there's a lot to that. I think a lot of times our families aren't safe environments to be ourselves, to be honest, because you've probably, like for me, I'm super sensitive. So if I experienced any type of rejection, even if it wasn't intentional, even if somebody was busy, I probably took that personally. It didn't feel safe to talk. It didn't feel safe. So I think you have that element. We have to create safe environments for our family members to talk and not immediately jump on them or attack them for things they want to say. Things they have to say. That's extremely important in communication. If you want to have real, honest conversations, you have to be open and not immediately attack and criticize.
Do you think that people go deep in the secondary, air quotes for the podcast listeners, adopted family environment? Do they go deep, or is this? I'm going to find the bottom line. That's what this show's about. I want to find the root issue here. Not that we're going to solve the world's problems in relationship, but I really want to nail something. I want to nail a pressure and a pain point for people listening as well, where they can go, okay, I'm going to get that a try. Do you think they go deep there, or is one of the root issues that they don't want to go deep? So therefore, with family, because they know all your stuff, you kind of can't do the superficial conversation because they know most of it. They've seen you at your worst and your best. So you almost have to go deep if you're going to have a conversation at all. With the adopted family, like football, it's my family, it's my bros. We will die for one another, but we never go deeper than football. No. Yeah. We never really go deeper than playbook, right? Yeah. Because I can remember the last team I played on, which was in Canada, a coach came to me. And we'll leave his name out because he's well known. A coach came to me and he said, hey, listen, I was what was called a foreign national. So on the Canadian teams, they can only have so many foreign nationals, which means as an American playing in Canada, and they have so many slots on the team so that you don't just have a bunch of NFL guys playing in Canada. You've got to keep up open spots for Canadians. So it's a good system. And he said, there's only 2 foreign nationals on the team. I don't want you to go out with a lot of these guys. And I thought that was interesting because, I'm outgoing. I love friends. And he said, look, you're different. Just pick 1 or 2 friends and just, and I thought it was a weird comment. He never justified the comment. But then I started paying attention. And on a 52-man roster, right, on a football team or an 83-man squad in camp, you're really only real friends with 2 or 3 guys. I'm talking about people that are coming to your house. Yeah. People who you'll go sit with and talk about trouble and trial. Yeah. It doesn't happen, but they'll die. They'll go get concussions for each other.
True. Because
of the common goal, right?
Yeah.
Win the game.
Yeah.
And they'll call that family. And they'll treat those people better than they'll treat family. Mm-hmm. So now I'm asking myself, and I'm being long-winded here, but I'm asking myself, okay, is it an escape away from reality, away from dealing with bottom line issues? Is that why we're adopting family that's not the family we grew up with? Because there's pain. And yes, it may be dysfunctional upbringing, but let's say it was a functional upbringing. You're coming from a very stable 2-parent home.
I was very blessed.
But still, there was major trial. So it doesn't matter what people see from the outside. I always say that my grandpa said this. He said, until you've walked in a man's shoes, you don't really know him.
Yeah.
Ask him.
Yeah.
Ask him his experience. Because we look from the outside and we go, oh, guy's got it all figured out, or he had an easy upbringing. You don't know what went bump in the night. You don't know the emotional thing. So could that be it? That society actually just doesn't want to deal with real issues, and therefore we adopt family that will stay superficial with us.
That's so true. I think you're definitely onto something there, because none of my friends knew me in high school at all, or middle school, or any of it. It's easy to pretend, especially when you don't go home with those people at night.
You're someone else to a degree.
Yeah.
To a degree, if we're honest.
Well,
I mean,
you're hiding. You're hiding. And I've heard through friends that went through marriage counseling that people can hide who they are for up to 2 years in marriage.
Yeah.
So, and that's when you're really
and
close.
we use that analogy with pedophilia and fighting sex trafficking. Everybody know we fight sex trafficking. Yeah, absolutely. A pedophile can integrate society in 2 to 3 years. They can blend in.
Oh yeah.
Evil can do that, but then ultimately somewhere the real
it's gonna come
the real
out.
person's
You really
gonna come
can't hide who you are forever, but you can when you don't go home at night to those people. It's very easy to pretend and to think you have some belonging, but it isn't necessarily deep. And it's hard too to have any real deep relationships with too many people because it's
so much work.
It's a lot of work.
Which is why I always say I don't understand when guys want 2 or 3 girlfriends or 2 or 3 wives or relationships. Have you lost your mind? No offense, but I mean, it's hard work dealing with women as a guy, and women's going to say it's hard work dealing with guys. You want to redo that? Think about it. The guys are married, and now they're in their 40s, and they go into second marriage. Now you got to go tell all your upbringing stories again. You got to do all that work again, all that emotional investment, the capital, the time that you got to invest in building a safe enough environment to have both an intimate, sexual, and just emotional, intimate, a physical, probably a business, an intellectual relationship with this person. It's a massive investment, huge, which is why I still believe the nuclear family is the best model on earth, because it's one man, one woman, because ultimately and I'm not, look, my mom's divorced because my mom, lived a celibate life her whole life. I get it. There's times there are, but still, which model is the model that we point towards to say your highest likelihood for success? We call it best practices,
and
right?
It
is the nuclear family.
It is. And
that's God's design. It's biblical.
It is. And it's so interesting that culture wants to change that. And we have had that since the 60s. There's been a Marxism, communism agenda to separate the family and to destroy nuclear family. And it is because that we are at our strongest when we're in that. You're ahead in life. Statistics prove that having both parents at home puts you so much farther ahead as a child to just have that. So they want to destroy culture, and they want to destroy the family and the individual, and that's why the attack on family has been so strong. So it's got to stop with us. There's a lot of external influence, but internally there's a lot we can do too, that we can decide on and to make important, so that our families, our spouses, and our kids are stronger.
It's fascinating. What keeps coming to my mind is Margaret Sanger, right? So when we think, okay, let's look at some of the biggest battles of our time, and then let's just be real. In this show, we're going to be intellectually honest, regardless of people. We're going to have people in that chair. Of course, you and I are married. We're both Judeo-Christian. We're Christians, a Judeo-Christian lifestyle. We are consecrating ourselves in certain areas, and we're doing things because the Word of God is the absolute truth, right, to us. But we will have people in that chair who will have a diabolically opposed position, and I'm excited about those conversations because this is what we're going to bump up against. Let's take the societal issues of the day, the real issues of today, and then measure it against healthy family. Measure it against the best practice models, not just marriage, but relationships. What is the best practice model that has proven success in sex, in childhood, in parenting? And I think what we're going to find is a lot of answers as to, that doesn't work. That doesn't work. We're going to come back down to the tried and tested, which stood the test of time. There's a reason. We know nothing's new. So we think today is bad. It is bad. Sodom and Gomorrah was pretty bad. Okay, it was bad enough for God to go, I'm gonna kill everybody. Right? Everybody's going away, right? So then, for me, it is absolutely idiotic and foolish and reckless to not look at history, right? And say, guys, when you sexualize children, it doesn't work. You're going to break a culture. When you take away individual liberty and freedom, it does not work. It works for a few. It worked for Hitler
The people who
for a
wanna control
while.
you. Yeah.
It worked for Hitler, not for very long, by the way. 7 years, arguably 8 years, short of a little blink of an eye in the grand scheme of things. So it just, even for Hitler, if he could be honest, he'd look back and go, yeah, that didn't play out so well, right?
But it did cause a ton of damage.
But there's always carnage. So that being said, when we talk about the loyalty to family, there's a show Yellowstone, and the family is loyal to the Dutton Ranch, but it's a very it's a very dysfunctional loyalty, because it's not a loyalty where the individual matters. And all of a sudden, it's another form of government where it's like a deity, and they raise up a person to be a god, and now it's loyalty to a god, which is where I want to come with politicians and politics today.
Yeah.
We elevate these guys to become gods, and now it's a loyalty to the party, but in the process, it's an abandonment of the individual. So yes, I am about family, but in our family, you, me, husband, wife, 3 kids, there's the Booyens tribe. And we need to make sure that we keep that healthy, that we are investing there, that we don't have our kids go adopt an external family because they don't want to deal with the real stuff in the internal family. Teach them how to communicate, teach them how to air out, bring the word of God in, help them heal, help them find purpose. But we can't lose the individual in the process. It can't become the Booyens mantra, the Booyens tribe. And now we're building this altruistic legacy that there's a loyalty to it, but the child feels, well, I don't matter. It matters, but I don't matter, right? So it's tricky. It still comes down to the individual.
Well, and I think there's an intent behind our design and how we think and what we're skilled at and what we're passionate for. And we have to, especially as parents, we need to see that and speak into that. And then, like, how can we support that? How can we work together in that? That's where I would like families to get to, not a, this is my vision for your life, or this is how you're going to help my company. Just, what did God create you to do? Who are you? Because that's where we thrive. And I think that's a problem in our families too, is that we've labeled people and we're not letting them. That's why it's not safe sometimes. We've labeled people who
or
they are.
pigeonholed them in the family.
Yeah. Like
father's living vicariously. You're going to play football, son.
Yeah.
Okay. Can we when the child is of age, and when the child can just observe the child, and it will reveal. And like, it will reveal itself.
Like the family member, you're introverted, and not giving them an opportunity to be
space.
like, hey, no, I'm actually quite funny and I like people and da 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 da. Yeah. So that's what I think's really important. We have to have that safe environment, or it's not safe, and they're going to find somewhere else that is 100%. Safe and welcoming.
Your mom, which this is, I'm very blessed. I have a really, really healthy relationship with my mother-in-law, which most guys, I don't know if you women know it, but most guys will tell. Mother-in-law jokes there's a lot of them. Maybe people send us some mother-in-law jokes. Clean ones only, though. We'll kick you off if they're not clean. But clean mother-in-law jokes, and you'll see. I mean, there's horror stories with mother-in-laws. Yeah. And sometimes father-in-laws as well when a daughter's involved. But I've got a really healthy relationship with my in-laws for the most part, because I think they're just amazing people. But also, your dad became a dad to me because I didn't, you know, so there's an amazing relationship. But now you're extending out of our immediate family. Now it's the in-laws, and then the circle widens, right? And I teach this thing, and people can go check out the masterclass on my link tree. This masterclass, I've got this one. I don't remember. I think it's episode 7 or 8 in the masterclass. I can't remember. I do the dartboard with Dave Beering. Everybody, check out Dave Beering. Amazing. Lion's Share is the organization out of Nashville, Tennessee. Dave Beering sat me down years ago, and it's really all these shout outs I just do because I love it. They're not part of the show. Merides and Puckett's and Franklin. We sat in Merides. We had a coffee and a breakfast. And he said, Jaco, here's a dartboard. Go at the dartboard, and it's just circles, and put people in the dartboard. And the bullseye is the people that you've given access to your psyche, your heart, people that can really affect you.
Yeah.
And for the listeners, there are people that we give, and it's a granted access.
True.
When people take it, it's abuse.
Yeah.
That's rape, abuse, manipulation, force, fraud, coercion. And people can force their way into your private space, emotionally, physically, metaphysically, right? But when you give it, that's dangerous. Because you're giving someone keys to the front door, not even the back door, and they can get in and they can really mess with you, right? So we have to help one another through self-accountability, self-awareness, to understand when we've granted access to people into our personal space and it's not healthy. Because my mother-in-law says this: every single person has a sign on their head, on their forehead, that says, make me feel important. That's true.
Yeah.
It's a fact. You mentioned something offhand, I don't know if you realize, but you said in a corporation, the individual. Yes, so for corporations, there's a corporate vision and it's a culture. But the second we lose the individual, the second we don't recognize the individual, the janitor, and help him be the best janitor that he can be, give him the tools that he needs, right? I believe in, let a soldier pick his weapon, right? What do you need?
Like that.
Because I know myself best.
Yeah.
Right? If I'm going to go to war, I know what I want in my hand to go to war with. It may not be the club or the rock or the weapon you give me to go to war with. Not physical weapons, but like, hey, I'm going to go play football. As football players, we pick our own helmets, within what's available, but we fit it for us. Our armor. We go and I choose the cleats, and that's a cool story. I in a Nike league, I played with Adidas because I couldn't wear Nike, and so I just used blackout, and I blacked out the Adidas markings on the cleats because that's a shoe I wanted to wear. Well, if we take that mindset of we are individuals, we have individual wants, needs, desires, how do we create an environment in the immediate biological family? Now, we're going to go with a semi-healthy family, not a family where the father's abusing the children, okay? That is a get-out-of-Dodge situation. Yeah. Or where the husband's abusing the wife and, knocking her unconscious. That's a completely different conversation. But a semi-healthy environment. How do we get in there and best have a vision, have teaching, right? It's not a free-for-all, but still honor the individual. How do we do that?
I think you've got to know who you are and be able to communicate it and listen. Be willing to listen. Be willing to dig. I think those are really important things that we have to do, and we have to be willing to do, for sure. I would like you to share, there's a story in South Africa's history about the men and the women and the children.
Yeah.
But I think that this is a really good picture of how families...
You're talking about the Brits and the Boers, the Boer War, the men, the women.
I think it's a good picture of how family needs to operate and why we're stronger together. Because I do feel like we're in a cultural war.
Yeah. You want me to share that?
Yeah.
Yeah. So, of course, I'm from South Africa, born and raised by a single mom. Dad was in and out of my life. Later, my life came, and it was amazing. We reconciled. In 2011, he passed away, and praise God, he's with Jesus. But there was an influx of a lot of teaching by a lot of different men. History is really important in South Africa, particularly in the Afrikaans culture. There's only And for the scholars, the South African historical scholars, they're going to go, Jaco, you missed it by 4 degrees, whatever. I'm going to do my best here to recall. But the interesting thing is, though, adopted family, in the immediate family and adopted family, we had about 9 teachers in my family. Okay? My mom's a teacher going on 50 years, taught history, language, arts, drama, became a professor. She's still teaching in the U.S. today. I have other family members, many who are teachers. I've got a family member that's a 55-year-old first grade teacher. I mean, God bless her. 55 years of first graders. I mean, my goodness, how many lives has she affected?
True.
How many lives has she? And she's incredible. Her name is Estelle. So, but they all at some point taught history. So history is important. So South African history, because there's arguably only about 3 million people on the planet Earth speaking my language, Afrikaans. That's a small tribe. That's a small community. Yeah. And it's a language that they're trying to exterminate in South Africa, where there's 14 official languages, right? Zulu, Xhosa, Vendi, Pedi, Sotho, South Sotho, Swahili, etc., right? So in the Afrikaans community, we, for life, hold on to history. Because our forefathers there were outnumbered. So there's this battle.
And the Afrikaners are Dutch settlers.
Dutch descent, yeah.
Dutch descent.
Van Riebeeck, Dutch descent. Now, for me, of course, it's Dutch and Jewish because on my father's side it's Jewish, but it's a huge Dutch influence. And they're fighters. I mean, they fight. Not drunkard fighters, kind of like the Fighting Irish, but they're going to fight for what they stand for. So here's the deal. There's this battle that goes down. The Brits can't conquer the Boers, and I'm going to talk 30,000 feet. They come up with the notion that, look, if you capture the women and the children, and you put them in concentration camps, the men will surrender. So if you separate the family, now the men go out on the battlefield, women hold the homestead, and I'll say this unapologetically. A man cannot hold a homestead like a woman, okay? I'm talking about the mechanisms that makes a family work. Kids, bedtime. You say often, don't come disrupt the flow here, bro, because you went on a trip. They go to bed at 7:30. We eat at 5. The rhythm of the family, right? Okay. So women are at home. They work their tails off. They're working the farm. They're tending to the heifers, the field, whatever. Because let's roll the clock way back, right? There's no cell phone and technology. The men are out there. They're fighting. All of them. We couldn't select, well, Johnny is fighting, but Joe doesn't. No, there's not enough of us. Yeah. We had to go fend off the Brits who try to colonize the whole planet. Okay? All right. Yeah. So they do. They fend them off. They capture the women and children, put them in concentration camps. Obviously, the men's going to surrender. But here's an interesting story. So a time arrives, all the women shot. All the women knew how to farm and do everything, basically, all right? Which is what I saw my mom do. When we circled the wagons, literally circled the wagons, we in a different battle showed up at Blood River with the Zulus, the Zulu tribe. Shaka Zulu, epic story, a movie I'd like to make one day, phenomenal, right? Completely outnumbered. They take the high ground, which is great moral and military tactics. Sun Tzu, Art of War, take the high ground, know yourself, know your enemy, etc. But the women stepped into the battle. Now you had children. On the camera, if you could see, you had ox wagons, right? In a layer circled, women and children inside. Women were loading the weapons. Men were firing. Women were firing. And it wasn't until that family unit got together again, in a way, and operated as a unit, that battles were being won. But we're always going to be outnumbered as an individual family.
True.
So right? True. Yeah. Always. On your street, you're always outnumbered. So at some point, we must, and I encourage people to really go get into the details so I didn't just completely botch, well, Jaco, technically, 40% of the women. Look into the story and you'll understand how a very small community, another story pops up. There's this girl named Rachel de Beer. A snowstorm rolls into South Africa. It's in that same time. Her and her brother gets trapped, and she basically completely strips herself naked. She digs a hole in the snow, right? Literally, this happened. She digs a hole in the snow, and she puts her clothes on her brother, her younger brother, and she covers her brother with her body heat, and she rescues him, but she loses her life, right?
Okay.
No greater love on earth
To lay down your
than
life.
to lay down your life for another.
Yeah.
That's where I want to get back to. I want to get back to, not necessarily about people to die for each other, but I want people to get back to, I'm on this planet for others.
Yeah.
I'm on this planet, and I must pay attention to the immediate family that God gave me, even if it's broken, even if they're the ones who most hurt you. We have to get back, because why do we have immediate family?
I think where you're going is like it's about sacrifice, and that's why when you get married, you realize how selfish you were, and when you have kids, you realize further how selfish you were. It's about sacrifice, and even relationship with God, it's putting your needs and your desires down for another person. I've been studying this for 3 years and working on a book that is at a publisher about how to become a hero, and that's
Please dig into this. Yeah,
what makes people a hero is that they lay down their lives for their friend, and it's a love response. That's why the greatest hero is Jesus. He laid down his life for all of us, but it's in movies all over the place. Katniss becomes a hero when she volunteers as tribute. Anna and Elsa, Anna steps in front of Elsa and she freezes to death, and when everything's okay, Elsa's like, "You'd sacrifice yourself for me?" And Anna says, "Yeah, I love you." And that's what it's about. It's, I love you so much, like I'm sacrificing my wants, my desires. And it's not that you become a doormat for people, but I think specifically in marriage relationships and in those parent-family relationships, we have to get to a point. That's how you become strong, and you together is you sacrifice some of your stuff, some of your wants and your desires, and you lay down your life for your friend, and that's how we get strong together. It's what makes you a hero.
That sacrifice you're talking about, we're not necessarily talking about death, although I refer to a young girl giving her life for her brother, but we're talking about wants, needs, desires. It doesn't mean I shouldn't have wants, needs, desires, but it absolutely should mean that in the morning when I wake up and I've got a certain desire for myself for that day, I've got to put my children and my wife in front of that desire.
Yeah.
But at the same time, you're doing the same. And at the same time, we're teaching our kids to do the same. And what I'm telling people is this: you will get yours.
Well, you
will get to go. I will get to go play golf. I will get to go drive race cars really fast. I will get to go on a trip. I will get to go hang out with my friends. You will get that. But if it's the priority, it's selfish. And it's about being self-aware enough to not be selfish and sacrifice. Because I'll tell you this: you take 4 guys and they go out one night, and some random dude walks up and tries to jump one of the friends, and someone steps in and defends him, they're bros for life. For life. Meaning, you stepped in for me.
Yeah.
You stepped in and put yourself at risk for me.
Yeah.
Oh, that's major social capital, right? As a concept. If we go deeper with that, and it's not just about when someone wants to attack you. No, I'm for you.
Yeah.
In a healthy way. I'm not an unhealthy soul tie, but I'm for you because I'm here for others. I'm not here for myself. I think that's lost in society.
It is.
To a degree.
And that's the greatest among you will be your servant too. Like we've lost that. It's the American dream. It's the American culture that's so self-centered and so self-focused, which puts us alone and it puts us weak. Honestly, because we need people, and to really mesh and to not fail and to not ignore, to be healthy, it requires sacrifice. It requires sacrificing some of our needs and our wants. And those, it is important that everyone be healthy. Otherwise, you're bringing the whole team down. But that's part.
But we collectively lift each other up, right? And it's that image. It's that picture. It's a beautiful picture. It's a picture of, somebody stepping on someone's shoulders to go up. And you could do that. You could sacrifice in a way where, hey, I'm going to stand here and I'm going to give you a boost, right? That's noble, right? There's virtue in that. The picture I love a lot more is the guy reaching down and pulling someone up. That's where I want society to get to. Wherever you are today, you are striving. There's an up for you, right? You want up. But hey, pause, look back down, and pull somebody up. Because when we just look, and I'm not talking about looking up, Psalm 23, where my help comes from is the Lord. You know, I'm talking about looking up the corporate ladder societally. We want to grow. We want to, we can't up. We step on people.
Yeah.
We have to.
That doesn't work.
Now, or unless someone's pulling us up and then we forget and then we step on someone else. No.
Yeah.
Look down. As you look up, pull someone up. Give a helping hand. Whether it's 5 cents to the homeless guy or sit him down, instead of giving him $1, sit him down and say, hey, bro, can I buy you a meal? Often they say no to me because it's not really about the meal. I understand it's about the drugs they could buy, but I still offer. I did it last week. Hey, can I buy you a meal? And then legitimately, we did it on one of our film sets. Have a conversation with this guy. Because I firmly believe, 100%, there's not a single human being on planet Earth that I can't learn something from. I may learn what not to do.
Which is also valuable.
It's more powerful than learning what to do.
Yeah.
I may learn from somebody that, okay, don't do that. That's not going to work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Don't do that. But it's that cultural barrier that's been put up. And now all of a sudden we've created a class system like they did in India.
Yeah, we do.
You're Republican, okay, you're bracketed. Holistically, you're just put in you're liberal, you're Christian, you're non. Now you're just put into this group, and now people just decide, I will not find out who you really are, because I know, and no, you don't. You said very few of your friends really know you.
Yeah.
There's very few people on the planet that really know me.
Yeah.
You know, and so and a lot of that is on, hey, I need to share. So do you have friends that you can be very real with?
Yes.
Obviously not to the
No,
level
I
as
do.
in a marriage.
And
That's the beauty of our marriage. It's a healthy marriage.
I had to pray about that, and I had to be, I'm naturally very guarded. We have coping mechanisms. We learned how to survive, and we had coping mechanisms. We put on armor, and I've had to learn to take the armor off and let people in. But yeah, now I do, praise God, which is amazing and cool, that I can be honest and be myself and get...
that scenario is better than when you didn't have it, right?
Oh, it was awful. I was pretending, and I was dying inside because I didn't have I didn't feel I had a safe place to share who I was at home, and I didn't really know who I was, in all fairness, and I definitely didn't do outside of the home. So I was dying inside. Honesty,
right? So,
yeah.
Something I love about our marriage is early on we decided, and it was the first year and a half. My contribution to the marriage, it was rough. It was, and that was my contribution. Because there was a lot of growing, right? But honesty, we have an amazing situation in our marriage where we talk about everything and anything, and there's a playing field where, bring it, let's discuss it, and it could get
safe environment.
Safe environment, but it can get challenging.
For sure.
Give me a couple more movies based on heroes, because I really want to dive into. We'll do another show just on the hero's journey and what culture has said a hero is to be and what a hero actually is. But give me a couple characters. You're writing this book and this hero's journey, and I've watched you, and it's brilliant. It's phenomenal. It's going to probably end up being a film, but it's amazing.
Thanks.
The hero's journey. Talk a little more on the hero's journey as it relates to media, because people can relate to movies they've seen.
Oh, for sure. I believe God has called everybody. We all have that spark of a hero inside of us. And I believe that God calls us to that. And a lot of people run away from it. That's part of the hero's journey. But those that choose to go on the journey, there's often nothing to go back to. And it's crucial to changing your environment. Your environment needs you to become this hero. Otherwise, you're in the ignoring, and time does not heal all wounds, and you're going to pass down the same things you got passed down to you. So some of the movies, The Lion, Witch, and the Wardrobe is obviously a very clear one where Aslan dies for the traitor Edmund. I love The Hunger Games, where Katniss volunteers as tribute for her sister. It's because she loves
Talk Star Wars. Is there a hero in Star Wars? Who's the hero in Star Wars?
I mean,
from a writing perspective?
Luke, if you go to the original one, he is the protagonist, and he has nothing to go back to when his aunt and uncle die. He's got to go save the princess. But a lot of times the character experiences this either a physical death or the death, somebody dies because they failed. There's a death of some sort.
Does it have to be physical? Could it
no.
be in a dream?
Yeah.
Or a vision, a mission?
You end up, you hit a wall. And this is why I look at life like a story too, where we have obstacles. And you say this a lot. We don't have obstacles. We have opportunities.
Yeah.
So
every obstacle is an opportunity.
These are opportunities for us to grow. We have challenges in order for us to grow. You're going to meet allies and enemies, and you're going to go through tests and trials in order to do what you're called to do. Like I talk about with David, David was called as a young man, like a child. He was anointed to be king of Israel, but he didn't immediately become king of Israel.
Yeah. 17 years, arguably. Yeah.
Yeah. He had to kill a lion and a bear before he could kill Goliath. Like God gave him more. And then, he dealt with all Saul's stuff and he was chased away. He gathered his own army. And in the Bible, it consistently talks about people that were promised something like Abraham and Sarah, and they had to wait a long time. They had to grow. So I think it's that, to me, it's a little bit of that hero spark, but you've got to nurture it. You've got to be intentional. It's not going to happen. You aren't born a hero.
Yeah.
Heroes are made, and you have to be willing to
go through that
fire and trial to do it.
And the definition of hero, I think, is something we need to redefine a little bit in culture today, because the single mom that's raising a family, that's a hero.
Well, true.
Because she's sacrificing like crazy.
It's sacrifice.
Like
that's
crazy.
What makes us heroes. And I'm so mad. There's a pro-choice argument that wants to say killing your child is heroic.
What?
Like I am sacrificing my child, and
there's
that's
no
heroic.
Self-sacrifice.
I
Where's
know.
the self-sacrifice?
I know. It's selfish.
It's convenient.
The enemy likes to twist things. No, if you really were being heroic, if you were really sacrificing, you would sacrifice your needs and your wants for the child that's growing inside of you that is not you, that has separate DNA. It's a separate human person. So the enemy likes to twist those things and tell us, redefine words. But what makes us a hero is sacrifice, and that sacrifice is out of love.
Yeah, look, it's like these guys who want to commit suicide and then they kill their two kids, like, and before they kill themselves. They go, it's mercy. No mercy. Are you out of your mind?
Mercy killing.
There's no mercy there. That's brutal, violent, evil, demonic. There's nothing merciful about it. And there's nothing, oh, but this world is so tough. He put his kids out of misery and mercy. I mean, shut your mouth.
Oh, and they want to use
insane.
Yeah, they want to use the foster care argument. Kids grow up in foster care and it's awful, and it's the whole Thanos argument. And I'm like, guys, Thanos is the ultimate villain. Like, don't use his argument. Like,
Thanos,
yes. Because people are suffering, then like I'm just going to kill half of them because people are suffering, and that's somehow mercy, and that somehow makes him good. No, that's why he's the greatest villain. He killed other people. It doesn't matter what you're using to justify the ends. If the ends are killing other people, that makes you a villain.
Killing them, killing their dreams, putting them down, stepping on them, not reaching down and pulling them up, all that is death. Does Kylo Ren...
Oh, every time.
Come on, I got to get it. Does Kylo Ren have hero potential?
Everybody does. And
that's right.
Ultimately, in that final episode 9, he does choose to make heroic choices. So, I would have written it differently, but ultimately he did. That's how they wrote it, and that's how great stories should be written. But I think
there's hero potential in everybody. There's Paul again as a Christian. Paul, I mean, we can argue nobody, including who I mentioned earlier. The whole rounding up, targeting the Jewish community. Nobody persecuted more people or individually went with more vigilance and vengeance than Paul. And here's this guy turning it around, becoming a champion for people, right? So I believe there's hero potential in everybody.
There is.
And heroes are not just athletes or politicians, for crying out. It's the unseen hero.
Parents can be heroes. Parents sacrifice. If you are a decent parent, you are sacrificing your daily wants and desires daily, even in a minuscule level. Like even just decent parents are heroes. And obviously people like firefighters are great But
Yeah, but I think those are the obvious, right? It's
Yeah,
obvious. Well, the guy that runs into a burning building, oh, well, he's a hero. But again, I'm going to say, in a very, very underserved community in our country are men who are abused and single fathers. Look, I love single mothers, but we don't talk. I personally know 2 single fathers that's in our church community. Pause for a second and think about that. I mean, these are single fathers of young girls, like 9, 10, right? That is Mount Everest for a guy to wake up in the morning, go work, because it's not natural. It's not nature to him to nurture the way he needs to nurture. And not just boys. That would be one thing. If it's boys, hey, let's go camp out, and it's a forever camp hunting Texas party. No, this is about, I got to raise young girls, and I got to protect young girls. So that's a hero, an absolute hero. I mentioned my aunt. The person right now that is proactively pouring healthy ideology, healthy ideas, healthy concepts into young minds in kindergarten. Those are heroes.
True.
Uncelebrated, unsung heroes. That's who I want to elevate, the unsung heroes. The obvious, okay. Yeah, thank you. Thank you for everybody in armed forces. Thank you for everybody that serves this country. Absolutely. But I promise you every SEAL I've ever met, like a human SEAL, every SEAL I've ever met would tell you, oh, my mom was my hero, my dad, my uncle, this, that. They don't consider themselves heroes, right? Yeah. They don't. When people say, Jaco, you're a hero for helping rescue children, I never think, do I wake up. I go, help people. Help people.
Well, I think coming back to family, we've got to circle the wagons a little bit. And I know it starts with the individual health and the health of the family, but like with trafficking, it's a separate thing. And it's kind of where the American dream has kind of, I think, influenced some of this. And even the churches, we've got this separatism kind of thing. And Absolutely. I feel like we've got to circle the wagons as a family, as a community that fights trafficking, as communities that love Jesus. Like, we need to support the guy that is raising kids by himself. Like, circle these people as communities. And that's, what your story on in South Africa reminded me of, is
literally circle the wagons, bring the family together, be united, work together.
That's how we're really going to affect culture. Absolutely. And that's why we've been kept divided and we've been kept weak and we've been sold this individualism and this separatism. But if we really want to make a difference, it starts with the individual and family, and then we've got to circle the wagons.
Got to come together ultimately. Yeah, It's not just about individual liberty, because then again, I can, yes, not on your own. Right? We get back to that. And we need to continue this conversation. Look, it's fascinating for me. I want to keep digging into family. I want to encourage people watching, invest in the family, the DNA, the biological family that I believe God gave you, God chose, that you are born into. Yeah. And it may be very dysfunctional, but we still have to invest there. We've got to invest in that and
is huge
create
too.
Healthy boundaries.
Yeah. Didn't hit on forgiveness, but that's a big one.
Well, it's impossible without forgiveness. Yeah. I want you to come back, and we're going to have you on regularly. I want to talk forgiveness. I want to talk how to deal with hurt and pain, how to really move on, how to unconditionally love. Yeah. So when the love doesn't return, it's not conditional. Because I think that's a huge, huge issue. And then I really want to dive into media with you.
I love it.
Story writing. What is Hollywood doing? How are we shaping culture?
We are.
With the stories we tell culture.
Yep.
And it becomes an ideology. It becomes an ideal, and it's misguided, completely misguided, right? Like I'll tell every parent, your son or your daughter can like the football player, the baseball player, the basketball player, and aspire within football, baseball, whatever it is, to take attributes, but get someone that's tangibly in their life to learn about life.
Yeah.
Because that football player, the persona you see, is not who they really are either. Okay? The TikTok, the Twitter, it's not. It's not.
Yeah.
They have their own trials and struggles that they don't air out in public, and the kid never sees. And now we built these way misguided ideals of what it is to be a healthy, contributing member to society.
True.
And then we have to build bridges. We can't go, I'm a Christian, they're not, so there's no bridge. That's, in fact, diabolically against what I'm commissioned to do as a Christian, right? left or right, if we can't come together, there is so much more that unites us than divides us.
Yeah.
Unless we just focus on what divides us, right? And then we'll be divided. And alone we will fall. I don't care who you are. You will not stand by yourself. You can't do it. I mean, what a blessing. I want to push people to some of your books. The book Arise is amazing. I know that you and Katie Walker, actress Katie Walker, who, you and Katie and you wrote that book, Arise. I encourage women, particularly, it's a book for women. You got to go check out Philipa Booyens. The book Arise. I know firsthand that it's touched so many lives. It's transforming women. And then I'm excited for these books, other books coming out, and thank you for helping me on my book, which is a labor of love for you. That thing has been in the working for 2 years. I should apologize to the publishers, but it's coming though. Yeah. But that's a book to really invest in women and say, hey, what does a culture look like when women are truly in a place where they're healthy and their identity is set and there's a beautiful relationship between men and women in the country. But thank you. Family is important. Last word.
Circle the wagons. That's and the greatest among you will be your servant.
That would be a bottom line statement.
Yeah.
Right? All right. Thank you. See you guys next time. God bless.